Sukhi Hoto. So while welcoming you to this program, I would like to read out something uttered by a very prominent character who is none other than Dato Dr. Ananda Kumarasiri. Education is one of the most used but most abused words in English language today. If you ask 10 people what the meaning and the purpose of education is, one would get 10 different answers. So while welcoming you to this knowledge discussion of ours, I would like to introduce you to Dato Dr. Ananda Kumarasiri. Now, he was the former ambassador of Malaysia as well as the former Director General of the Asian Organization. So we warmly welcome you to this program. And also, sir, I would like you to explain of what I uttered, the phrases I uttered just before welcoming you.
Sukhi Hotu Suhani. I am delighted that you have greeted me Sukhi Hotu. You have caught on very fast.
Thank you.
You're a quick learner. And for the benefit of the viewers, this is a greeting which is born out of Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upeka, and it means may you be happy and well always. It has been in the Buddhist culture, but it's been somehow or other lost in the over time, and we need to revive this and make it a universal greeting. Now, you had cited or quoted a statement I made, which is actually a very serious statement. I mean, to say that, you know, education, the term education is a most abused word. We need to understand education to start with, to why I have taken that particular position, a premise. Education means to draw out. It's from the Latin word to educate, is to draw out whatever there is within. And today people are using the word education and using, you know, education as a way to achieve something else completely beyond what it actually means. For example, if you ask some policy makers at a very high level, even governmental level, many governments, they say we want to educate the people so that they will become better employed. So, I mean, if you have a policy statement to say your whole education policy thrust is to make people better employed, you have lost sight of the meaning of education. Then they say, you know, we want to have more knowledge workers. This is a reference that many of the leaders today say, you know, we want to have more knowledge workers, therefore we must have more computer and, you know, more computer savvy kind of programs, and then all kinds of things take place. But the reason why I say, you know, that it has been abused is because of policy statement and also the way it has been approached. As far as I'm concerned, I firmly believe that the education systems, not just in Sri Lanka, but, you know, in many parts of the world, has failed. The education system has failed. The reason why I say it has failed is because, you know, there are more children having opportunity to go to school today than there was even a generation ago. More children have chances to go to school. There are better facilities and there are better technological developments, infrastructure facilities, closer proximity to their home, all kinds of developments that have taken place which makes education more easily available. But there are more people who are committing crimes and social ills than ever before, unprecedented. Not only are the numbers of people who are committing social ills and crimes, who are guilty of deviant behavior, higher in terms of numbers, but the age has lowered so much that even a 10-year-old can, you know, be a murderer today. There are so many cases of, you know, 10-year-olds being murderers, being, you know, drug addicts and doing all kinds of things which are unheard of just a generation ago. So it brings us to ponder and ask the serious question, how come? If education is supposed to make you a better person, and if this is happening, so rampantly in all across society, then obviously something is wrong somewhere. That's why I say education has failed. And when many of these policy makers and leaders tend to try and address this problem, they tend to fall into the same trap of looking at the symptoms of the problem. This is a human frailty. Whenever you have a major problem and you want to find out what actually is the solution to the problem, people tend to look at the symptoms. They don't look at the root of the problem. Secondly, they tend to think of the problem as something distant, something far away, not near to you, not within you. So they look outside, they don't look inside. And this is what we are able to differ from the normal tendency, because the Buddha had very clearly given us the Four Noble Truths. Although we tend to be taught that the Four Nobles is about dukkha, the rising of dukkha, and the elimination of dukkha, and the way to eliminate dukkha, it is a formula. It is a formula. It's a framework for any problem. Any problem can be solved and addressed if you follow the Four Noble Truths in terms of the methodology. But we don't apply that methodology when it comes to education, and for that matter for most other problems. And therefore we are not able to overcome the problem of education. Now the problem of education is largely because they have not understood what education is all about. Education should be geared to bring about the development of the human being. And what is the human being? Even the term human being is not understood. In our language, for example, we refer to the human being as manusya, or manusya or manusa, and we are using this term very loosely without realizing why we use it. The reason why we refer to ourselves as manusya is because we have a mana or we have a mano. We have a mind. And the Buddha pointed out this mind can be developed, can be trained, can be cultured. It is because of our mind and because we are able to think and rationalize and behave according to our thinking that we are not animals. Actually, technically we are animals, but because we have the mind, we are referred to as human beings. And when we are referred to as human beings, it's actually being human. The underlying word is being. That is how we get the word human being. But are we being human? We are not being human. So the minute if you are not being human, you are no worse than an animal, tirisan. So we need to now grapple with this concept. The fact that we are human beings, but we are not being trained, being taught to be human beings. The other aspect of this important point is that education does not start in school. This is a very, very fundamental point the Buddha had underlined. And we fail to understand this. We fail to recognize this, and we have overlooked it completely. And as we go along in this so-called modern age, we have in fact, gone overboard on this. The cultivation of the mind should be the main focus of education, which is not. Now this mind develops in the mother's womb. From the day the time of conception takes place, this mind is already working. That also we have not. And when the child is born, this mind is all the time developing and acquiring knowledge, information, and all kinds of influence. What happens today is that the child is born and this mind is getting negative influences, and the parents are not looking after the child in terms of child care and child development. The Buddha underscored that the parents are the first and foremost teachers, and he referred to the parents as Pubba Acharya. Now because we don't have this approach of looking at the development of the mind from early childhood, we are unable to bring about the right mental culture when the child goes to school. By the time the child goes to school, it's already late because all the negative influences have come out. And in the schools, the methodology also is wrong. That is the other problem that we have. Not only is the lack of understanding of the fact that we need to look at the mind and develop this mind even before the child goes to school, and the house should be the first school. Now, how many parents are able to provide this? How many parents are providing this?
Sure.
They are just leaving the children either in front of the TV or with some ayah or some maid, and the maid is taking the precedence, and they are not giving quality time for their child, and the child is having all kinds of influences which are not holistic, which are not wholesome. And this you cannot erase from the mind. It is there. It becomes very much part of the thinking process of the child. And the only way this can be changed is to deprogram the mind. We need to deprogram the mind before we can bring in and culture the mind with what we want.
Okay.
So we talked about acculturalization. A wrong kind of acculturalization takes place. Now we need to deculturalize this mind and then enculturalize it with whatever we are talking about today. So hopefully, if we can get parents and policymakers to understand that the root of the problem is not so much, in terms of some of the facilities and various other things that they think is a problem, but to develop an understanding among young parents particularly, before even they get married, that when they have children, they have to give their time and attention to develop the child's mind in a wholesome, holistic way at home, long before the child goes to school. In the school system, we need to have sufficient inputs in developing this mind. Today there's nothing being done in the education system to develop this mind. What is happening in the education system is that they are completely loading the child with cognitive knowledge. There are 3 levels of learning. The first level is called cognitive learning, which is actually cognition, based on cognition. That is, you can recognize a thing and you understand that that's a thing. For example, this is a book, this is a table, this is a chair, and that's what it is. And it is basically knowledge, facts, information. And that's the lowest level of learning. It's just pure knowledge. And in the computer world that we have, if you want knowledge, you just click the button, you can get. Yet we are putting children through the whole education system of katapadang and knowledge base and learning knowledge. There is another level of learning called affective learning. Affective learning is where you develop your aesthetics, your feelings, your emotions, your analysis, your synthesis, your ability to think out of the box, originality, creativity, your appreciation, and your way of expressing artistically, musically. All those things come out at the affective level of learning. And the third level of learning, you go even higher, and that is called psychomotor level of learning. Psychomotor level of learning is where psycho means your mind and motor means your action is immersed in the learning. So you not only know, but you become what you know. You begin to internalize whatever you learn, and then you are the learning itself. There are many people who know a lot of things. They know that drugs is bad. You ask any drug addict, you ask any smoker, they know smoking is